Hi, everybody. My name is Julie, and welcome back to the Sister Sanctuary. This is our podcast that's associated with our business, The Quantum Feather. Today, I will be talking to you about demons. Now, I know this video is late. I was going to post it last night, but I felt like there was a little more research and understanding that I had to bring to the table for this discussion. This is very important right now because I think that so many people are struggling to understand why we're being influenced and what's causing us to do certain things. We're struggling with seeing how people in our society who we praised as leaders or voted as leaders, people we've worshiped, such as Hollywood and in the music industry, how they have really painted a false persona of who they are. And I guess that this is possible. You can create yourself just like on a podcast. You can create yourself into almost anything or anyone you want. There's usually a script behind everything, just like when I prepare for these types of videos. I will do some research and put my ideas down on paper, and I'll even work with AI as well, just to kind of get a more comprehensive viewpoint. And the reason I'm doing these videos is because I want other people to give feedback. Doesn't mean I'm right. Doesn't mean even AI projection of what we're talking about is right. But if we don't understand that people are able to present images, especially on social media, of who they are, it's usually just showing a one-sided view of what you're seeing. So we need to widen our perspective. We need to understand that not everything is as it seems. There are other energies and underlying influences on what's affecting us. That part of that is the challenge of being here. And we need to understand how those influences over our lives create our reality and influence our reality because we react and respond to it. So the emotions that we react and respond to these things, such as demons, which we're going to be talking about today, really shows what level of consciousness we are in as a society. So the demonic has been something that has been plastered all over movies, put into music, even, on the stage of performances, especially in the music industry, like I said, that they're showing that nature, that dark side, that evil side. And we have to ask ourselves why this is happening at this time. In my last video, I talked about us leaving the Iron Age, that we're at the end of an age. And some of the texts, they call it the Kali Yuga. Some people talk about we're moving into the age of Aquarius. And it's pretty much the same thing. It's a cycle of ages. So at the end of the age is when the heaviest, darkest influences over us are made known. They appear, they come up, we see them. So that's what I think is happening now. So in music, they're not hiding it anymore. They're not hiding the demonic, dark personalities that they are. You can see it. They're dressed like it. They sing the words. And even in politics, all these things are coming up. And I'm not saying one side over the other, but we're starting to see hidden things that we did not realize were happening or influencing us that have been happening. And this is the time of it. Like I said, this is the apocalypse. This is the great unveiling. This is when we see what we have not been seeing. So the good part of that is we're moving into the time where after we deal with the stuff that comes up, that dark, demonic, evil, which evil really means the opposite of live. Once we deal with that, it will clear out our energy, our bodies, and it will allow us to bring in a cleaner, a more spiritual, a higher vibration. And that's what we're all going through right now, all of us. No one's left out of the process, and we all handle it different. We're all at different stages in that process. So I thought it's important today that we talk about the demonic. So I think it's important, if this is the subject we're going to talk about, that we must understand what and how we create our reality. So a lot of us have been brought up in religious teachings, and I'm not harping that religion is bad or good. I'm just saying that anything that is taught to us, I feel, is a program, whether it's good or bad. So I promised myself I was going to quit saying that word. The demonic in religious books teaches us that it's a force of darkness, a force against God, who is considered good. It's something outside of us that can hurt us and harm us. It basically creates fear in the way that it is presented in our religious books. Something to be afraid of. And we're going to talk about the different religions and what their viewpoints of the demonic are. But there were some interesting things that I found along the way while I was doing some studying on the topic. So let's get into it. So, said it again. Okay. We need to understand the reality of our world. The Hermetic principles in the Kybalion teaches us that the first Hermetic principle is that of mentalism. And mentalism is that everything is mental. Everything is mind. Now, that's another way of saying everything is consciousness. So as we are rising our consciousness at this time, it's part of that mental state where we're starting to understand and expand the way we think. We cannot begin to understand what's happening to us or what has happened to us until we're able to expand our mind to look and hear the opinions of others, to put aside judgment, to try to understand the viewpoints of others, and even the teachings in the past that have occurred. Now, all is mind. So the creator, if all is mind, the creator of all is mind, is consciousness, is made up of consciousness. And that is the big question. So what is consciousness made of? Some people believe that consciousness is projected from the mind. It's a creation of the mind. And my argument with that is that the mind is just a processor. It processes information around us based off of our belief systems, what we have been taught, what we have experienced, our experiences. So the mind, even though it helps us generate our experiences here on earth, that there's more to us than just our mind processing those things. Now, even people go forward and say that we generate from our mind our reality, which I think that is true. And the way we generate that is by what we have encoded into our bodies. What information have we encoded into our genetics, into our DNA, into our plasma body, into our energy systems? That is really why we have differing opinions about things. That not one, two people think the same, or act the same. So why should we judge people if they have a different opinion about what's going on in the world? But I do think, and we're going to talk about this, so let me move on. So the universal living mind of God. So the demon, where did that word come from? So I usually try to split up words just to better understand what they were building in the context of the word. So D-E means of, and mon, M-O-N, means my, of my. But if you take it a little further in different civilizations, so in the Greek civilization, the Greeks they had a word, not demon, but it was called the daemon, D-A-E-M-O-N. And in the Greek structure, in their belief system, the daemon were guardian angels, but they can be good or bad. Now, the demon, if you look up the definition of what a demon is, D-E-M-O-N, like I said, of my, I think it really means of my mind, of my being. That is something I generated and created. Evil, supernatural being or force, often depicted in religious texts, an inhabitant of hell. It says demon is derived from the Latin word daemon, just like I just described, that the Greeks believed that daemons were guardian angels who were good or bad, or guardian spirits who were good or bad. Now, in Christianity, the word daemon became demon, and demon became something bad and evil. Like I said, in Greek and in Latin, the daemon was actually considered part of God. They consider them gods, not as God, like the God of the supreme God of all, but generated from God in a higher level, such as guardian angels, the way we view angels as being a higher spiritual connection, as being of higher spiritual connection to God, the supreme God. But in religions, they became something evil. They become separated from God. So the separation became, this is good, this is bad, or this is good, this is evil. Just like everything else in our world and environment became separated. So there's some really interesting things that I just want to say real quick. So if we understand the makeup of our body, and it talks about other beings coming here and interfering with our body and genetically manipulating us. Now, there's no doubt in my mind that genetic experiments have been done with humans and animals over a long period of time, and they're still doing it. I think that was what was called abominations back when the flood happened, because there was genetic mixing. Now, my viewpoint about how those genetics became mixed, they say that the Nephilim took wives and had children with them, that they had children. I'm sorry, my accent, sometimes you can't understand what I'm saying, so I'm trying not to do that. Now, the Nephilim were considered of great stature. If you look at the depictions of humans versus other races of beings who were here, humans are small. I mean, a lot of times, even in the buildings that are still here, where we have to widen our perspective of what these buildings really are. So in cathedrals and castles and temples, you see huge columns, huge doorways, just because the stature of the people were bigger. Now, for that kind of being to have sexual liaisons with a woman is impossible. Now, maybe if it was a being who was maybe 10 foot tall or 11 foot tall, but these beings were said to be a lot bigger than that. So I think a lot of genetic experiments were happening between the human and between these beings. And that's where we get the story of the Anunnaki interfering with our genetics to create other things. Now, they say the Nephilim, I believe, were created from this mixture with the fallen angels. The fallen angels came down and they fell in love with women and had sexual relationships. But then we need to understand the angelic makeup of these beings. So if these beings were of spiritual nature, like the Bible teaches us, what happened to them that enabled them to be able to bear children with women? How were they able to have sexual relations with women? Something happened and transpired between that fall and when they came here, which created the Nephilim. I'm getting my story mixed up, so that's why I'm backtracking. So the Nephilim were rulers over the earth. They were huge, they were big, and that's where the buildings come in. That's how we see creations of stone and marvelous things that we can't understand how they were built, but that's because these beings were of bigger stature. Now, as we explore later in other talks, we're going to talk about star seeds and we're going to talk about other species. Now, there's species who are smaller than us, but there are species who are a lot larger than us. And they even say that as we fell down into the lower densities, we became smaller. We became more dense, more condensed in our bodies. That we were of bigger stature too. But just the effect of what's going on in our surroundings and environment affects our bodies. So this is why we're a lot smaller right now, but we will start expanding. There are different studies being done on the expansion of the planet. They say that Earth is actually expanding. Our solar system is expanding. Then they talk about the Big Bang Theory, that everything's expanding. But I think everything came back together and condensed like this. And we're moving out now. We're moving out of that density back into the lightness of energy. Something else that was very interesting to me when I was studying the word demon and daemon, that artificial intelligence actually came into play with what I was looking at. So a daemon, let me find the information, in computer terms, are programs that run in the background that, and I am no AI specialist, so I'm going to explain it to you as simply as I can because I really didn't want to get in depth into it, but I wanted to make the connection between us, the demon, and the daemon, and its connection to artificial intelligence as well. So the people who create the artificial intelligence chose to bring these terms into what they were creating. And it could be that they're mimicking God's creation or us. And that's a discussion that we need to have. So why in computer technology and wording did they put the word daemon in there? So remember what I said in the beginning, that the Greeks and in Latin, the word daemon meant guardian angel or spirits who are both good and bad. Why would they use that word in computer language? I think that's very interesting. So another thing, when I was looking up about the computers, is that they use some other words. Okay, so there is a system, a computer operating system called Unix, UNIX. And this computer operating system is what was using these. This is what I found. So they even have what's called the parent process of a daemon. It's usually the init process. And the init process is the first process started during booting of the operating system. So tying that all together, that means the starting of life. Say you start up a computer, you're bringing it to life. So they said the init or init system is a daemon process. It is direct or indirect, ancestors of all processes, and adapts all orphaned processes. So look at the word in the description when I looked it up. They have parent, they have ancestor, they have orphaned. And even further into it, I saw the word forking, and then they had child associated with these processes. Now, I'm sure there's someone else who can explain this better than I am, but really my interest was on the wording that they were using and explaining these processes. So you have daemon, parent, child, orphaned, almost bring in a human aspect to the creation of this system, which is probably what they're doing. And that's why they're tying these words. But if they're reflecting these words in that process, they have to have some connection to what's going on with us, because they wouldn't be using it. That's what made it interesting to me. So the word daemon, like they use in the computer wording and they use in the Latin wording and the Greek, is really older than the word demon. So we talked about that. It was known as, and they called it the other gods, not the main god. In Plato's Phaedrus, daemon is explained, and I'm sure I mutilated that word, as a kind of madness, like falling in love. And when I was reading that falling in love line, why would, we fall in love? Why do we fall? They say the angels fell when the war in heaven happened, that there was a fall in heaven. Why is that word used in falling in love? And we think it's something that's positive as an expression of ourselves. Like even in that language, we're using love as a vehicle to fall deeper into density. So falling in love, ecstasy, inspiration is how Plato described a daemon, not a demon, a daemon in his work. Now, demon is defined as something of madness that is self-destructive behavior. And this is what we see in what has been going on around us. So as we're finding things out about slavery and trafficking and stuff like that, the misuse of money and how it's just been, you look at it and it's like mad. It's like, what has been going on in the thought processes of these people who have been doing this with the money? Now, sometimes I think they just label things as certain things and that money is really being laundered somewhere else. But then they make up all these things that they're giving the money to. So even though they might read a list of the money went to, studies on baboons, or the money went to this in another country for other countries, I think it's just the way they get money out of our country into other accounts for them. And then they use these crazy things to cover it up. Like this is what they're doing. So that's just my opinion. So let's get back to talking about demons. Okay. Research in neuroscience reveals that consciousness acts as both a receiver and a creator of our experienced reality. This is my opinion, and I welcome the opinions of other people that, yeah, we do create our reality, But that's not all. Like, we don't create everything, but the way we see things is perceived through our own perspective, our own consciousness. Thus, we're creating it. Now, our brain activity constructs our experience based on previous knowledge, expectations, and current context. And if you notice, things like they change the meaning of things as we go through our devolution, evolution, our journey. Let's call it our journey. So words that once meant one thing mean a different thing. Words in other countries, like cigarette, they call it a fag, but that means cigarette. Now here, that totally changed the definition of what that is. But this is a liberty I think people take to confuse. So just like I talked about falling in love, why would you fall in love? Why would you? Maybe it connects back to the angels, and when the fall happened, they say they fell because they fell in love with women, with human women. And let me talk about that for a minute, okay? So the fallen angels in that story of the Bible, that they lusted after women, and they came here because they wanted to have relationships with them. So do you actually think a spiritual angelic being from God's presence would want to come here just to have sexual relationships with women? If you've ever had a spiritual experience, that connection to God, or that connection to the universe through meditation, through Kundalini, a lot of people have those experiences. I believe that spiritual connection, that experience is 1,000 times more intense than just the sexual experience. Now, there is a brief moment during the sexual experience that we actually are able to feel that connection. But even that has been changed in our current society. So in the story, which I think is convoluted, and we really need to pick it apart in another podcast, so these beings came here, they had relations with women from God. No one in their right mind would leave God, leave that love, that beauty, that unrestrained feeling of being safe and being in the presence of, connection with everything, to come have a relationship with a human woman. So I think somewhere in our history, what we called angelic, something else was labeled angelic. And I think that's the old gods. And that's another podcast for another day. So let's get back to the demons. So we control, this is how we control our experience. Things we control with our mind, things we influence with our mind, and then random events. I got this from Psychology Today from an article. So no, we don't create everything around us. There are some things we can control with our mind. There's so many teachings, how to manifest money, how to create your wealth, how to create your world. It's more than just that. Like, it's a teaching that is half-baked. Like, there's a bigger picture than how we create. And some things we do not have control over. That's what I believe. I believe they are fixed rules about the plane of existence which we're in, but we do have miraculous power to influence those things around us. So random events that happen. Now, when things happen to people and we say, oh, you planned it, and oh, it's you who wanted to experience, and people are looking at you who've been through really horrific, abusive types of experiences. Why would I create this for myself? And then they try to convince you created this for yourself because you wanted the experience. Okay, yeah, on some aspect level, that is true. But then there are random events that happen, like, say, the concentration camps that happened during World War II. Why would anyone want to experience the mass killing of their people? Just like in the Native American experiences, why would they want to experience that type of suffering as a whole? Because I think that was an event that they did not plan. I feel like that they knew it was coming. They knew it was going to happen to the people, but there was a outside influence that was creating this type of event to happen to them. Now, we do live in a world of duality. And I also talked about the extremes of duality, and we have agreed to witness those extremes in duality. But we have gone so far down the dark trail of what has happened, what can happen to us as a human body. And even through severe trauma, soul fragmentation, when souls actually shatter and break away from each other because of the type of trauma that's happened, those kind of things, I don't believe we came here to experience. I believe those kind of things were done by beings in order to control us because they know how powerful we are, needed to break off pieces of our personality in order to control us. Because if we were a whole being, they wouldn't have that ability. So when soul fragmentation happens through trauma, excessive experiences, that those beings take the opportunity to kind of put those soul pieces into different areas, so where it's hard for us to come back together. But right now, when I was talking about we need to be doing our shadow work, and the shadows are our demons, which we have experienced in past lives and in this life. And those demons are the dark, dirty, not just experience, the energy that we need to deal with. I talked about Metatron's box, and me and my sister were talking about it, and it's really like the story of Pandora's box. When she opens up the box because of her curiosity and she sees all these dark things come out, that's exactly what I'm talking about. That we have to open that box. We have to. That's what's happening. So we open the box, and all these things we're seeing are things from that box. So the trafficking and even the homelessness, illness, extreme weather conditions, the torment on the body, and a lot of it is torment on the mind as well. The dividing of us, that they keep dividing us because it's the same thing they have done to our souls when they fractured. All of that's coming back together so we can become whole again. But once all those pieces start coming back together, there's a wisdom and a knowledge and wisdom that come back together with it because it was experienced There was a lesson learned, whether it was what we don't want, or how dark people can be, or how that feels, the whole experience of it. It doesn't go away through healing. Healing helps us bring those pieces back together so we're able to become whole again through the wisdom that we've learned from those experiences. So the demon plays a huge role in who we are. And I know some people don't like to look at it that way because they're dark, they're evil, they're bad, we can't look at them, they do this. I think we feed them power from our fear. I think we create them. I think that all the stories that we hear, whether it's biblical or fairy tales or made up things on TV, movies, all those things feed in our psyche to make us have a belief about something. But what really, the purpose of these things, the purpose is for them to be teachers. And once we overcome that teaching, that fear, we can face them and realize, look, I'm not afraid of this anymore. Like, I'm not afraid to speak out. I'm not afraid to be who I am authentically, because you have learned how to master that demon. And the importance of learning who we are and how to be authentic is the most important thing that we can be doing right now. Because the highest vibration we can achieve is that of authenticity, being authentic. We may think it's love. Love is a high vibration, but being who we are, not harming anyone, just being who we are. Like, a lot of us were bullied at one point in our lives, or singled out by other groups as being different. That we need to be able to stand in our space and say, that is not my problem. I'm beautiful. I'm happy with who I am. That's your problem. That's your demon that they're projecting on you. But just to be able to say, I stand in my space in love, being authentic who I am, bringing that vibration to the earth right now is moving things further and further, faster and faster. If you look around, things are changing so fast. I can see that a lot of people have been doing work on themselves, doing work on what we consider to be dark and light. That, yeah, light, angels, angelic, what we consider to be good, it's helpful, because we need to remember we have that part of us too. But there are lessons that we must learn from the dark. That only in this space, in this world, are we able to have those lessons. That as we continue to climb higher in our dimensions or densities, and we'll talk about that later, that the vibrational state of our bodies speeds up. So at those higher vibrations, we're not able to hold that kind of dense energy anymore. So those lessons go away. And it is a big relief, especially to us who are here, who have been undergoing those dark tests and experiences. Okay, let me see if there's any other things I want to bring up about demons. Do you believe we create demons? Do you believe we create our own demons? I would love to have feedback on that. Now, I love Carl Jung. I was a psychiatric nurse. I think behavior is fascinating. I love studying different things. But he had written this book called The Red Book. I need to go get it, y'all. I was going to grab it, but I want you to see it because it's so fascinating and big. Give me one moment. I'm going to go grab it real quick. Okay, this is my big edition of the Red Book by Carl Jung. It's huge. See, it's big. Put it in front of me, you can see how big it is. But I'm going to show you some illustrations in here, and I want to tell you a little bit about Carl Jung, because the idea of demons and daemons and was something that he struggled to understand. They actually said he was schizophrenic, and I think schizophrenic is just a label. Sometimes I think it's a label for someone who's connected spiritually and they can see into other realms, or someone who has undergone severe trauma, who has had some kind of split in the psyche. That happens too. And that split, that's what the dark ones who have been using trauma as part of their own experimentation and how to use people and wanting to split off the psyche. Like I said, they do it for control. But what also happens is they're able to push the mind to a point where it can activate hidden abilities such as telepathy, the ability to, I don't know, like go through walls, strength, the ability to read minds. That would be telepathy, wouldn't it? If you study the secret space program and the things that they're able to do, that those abilities, fighting skills, increase in strength, increase in knowledge, and they become super geniuses because it helps, they tap into other aspects of who they are. That's why they like doing it. And then they take that strength that they're able to bring out, like psychic, or, because they've been testing students in schools. You ever undergone a test in school? Here, do this test. We're going to see, like what level you're at. And they do these tests for a reason, because they want to single out children who have natural abilities, such as being psychic or using energy and things like that. So then they bring them into their own little experiments and stuff, which other people can explain more than me. But I did have a session yesterday with someone who's able to read your energy and kind of help guide you where you are, or where you've been and what connections you have had. And I will have a big long video about that, because it's personal and it's not something that I'm ready to talk about. But I wanted to show you this book is in Latin now. Let me show this. The Red Book, when I first, that was my earbuds. When I first saw this come out, I'm like, I need to have this book. Only because it has, not only is it in Latin, I think they finally came out with an English version, but these drawings and paintings, Carl Jung was a fascinating artist, and he drew things he would see and experience. This is one of those things. I'll show you the picture without knocking my coffee over. Let me find another one I want to show you. Like, his artwork was just, I think this is one of the entities he communicated with on a regular basis. Now, this book wasn't published till after he died. And I think it was to protect his, like, he was a psychiatrist. And it was just to protect his family and himself, because he didn't want to be labeled as crazy, especially if he's treating people and I'm trying to find a good picture, one that he's done. There's another one. I'll show you one more. and then we'll get back to the thing. This is another one. So this is called the Red Book. And I would suggest getting it. I need to get the English version because I want to read it. I can't read Latin. But Carl Jung was one of those scholars who actually wanted to understand what he was experiencing. So he was experiencing communicating with other beings. He was having vivid dreams. He was having waking dreams, which how I saw it labeled like, we would think people who are schizophrenic were having the same experiences. I believe from my 28 years of psychiatric experience that a lot of people who are hallucinating, for the most part, not everybody, but a lot of them are having experiences of the astral realms. They're connected with other dimensions, other densities. These beings look a lot different than us. So it is a shock to the mind. And the reason I wanted to add this topic to my podcast, and my sister and I talked about this too, is that in order for people to even be able to be in the presence of beings from other worlds, even if they're beings from inside the world who we did not know that were there, like there's lots of evidence that there are beings living inside of our planet, or beings living in the Antarctic over the ice wall, or that the vibration of these beings are so different from us. And I don't want to say higher, they're different than us, that the shock to our system, being in their energy, can cause us to have mental states that we can think we're delusional or, hallucinating, and that we're losing our minds. So this is where I think Carl Jung was coming from. He needed to understand what was happening to him, because in our world, these things weren't supposed to be happening, that not everybody's experiencing them, but that's because of a lot of other things we won't talk about now. Okay, so the Bible, I'm going to mention some religious things about demons. So in the Bible, demons are identified as being bad. The devil's evil. And if you ever realized, I might have said it already, EVIL is just the opposite of LIVE, it's live. So I'm just going to read a few things and then we'll finish up the video. Cultural narratives throughout history. Many cultures have developed mythologies that include demons. These stories often serve to explain the existence of evil, suffering, and unexplainable events. Psychological demons sometimes refer to personal struggles as fears, as demons. They can be created by traumatic experiences, mental health issues, or deep-seated fears and anxiety. Religious belief. In various religions, demons are often depicted as entities that tempt or torment humans. The creation of these demons is sometimes tied to religious texts or doctrines. And symbolism, demons can also be symbols of inner conflict, societal issues, moral dilemmas, and in this sense, they are created to represent large, abstract problems. That goes back to what I said in the beginning. In the Kabbalion, the first thing that we talk about is mentalism, that all is mind. So if all these things are happening to us that puts us in struggle and fear, that we can create from our own innate power the demonic. So we didn't even know that the devil existed until Christianity. And I was going to read that too. Like there's some and that's not the only religion that taught it. So the concepts of demons has ancient roots and appears in various cultures and religions throughout history. Here are some of the earliest mentions. I was trying to track it back to where that word demon came from. And we talked about the daemon. And I think that demon was taken out of that, and then it was separated into the bad daemon. And then the good daemon became angelics. So ancient Near Eastern religions, such as in Sumeria, Mesopotamia, Assyrian, and Babylon, demons were present. Zoroastrianism, a Persian religion, demons known as devas were considered malevolent spirits that opposed the good forces. In ancient Greece, that word daemon originally referred to a spirit or divine power, which could be either good or evil, like we talked about. In Jewish demonology, which influenced Christian beliefs, includes demons in the texts, such as the Talmud and Dead Sea Scrolls. In Christianity, demons are often depicted as fallen angels who rebelled against God. The early mentions of demons reflect humanity's attempt to understand and explain the existence of evil, suffering, and unexplainable events. Now, in Hinduism, the concept of creation through thought is present in various scriptures. Hinduism also had a belief in demons. So there were the devas and the divas. I might be saying that wrong now. I need to check. But they did. I know they had two groups, and one was considered demons and one was considered good. If you look in the stories, they always battled each other. They have pictures of them. They look like groups of people. They were blue-skinned or green-skinned, and I think that's the most accurate representation of these groups. These are real beings who are here. And then I think they were just based off of what their energy was, whether it was a dark energy or energy of light, that division, that's what considered what group they were in. Now, in the beginning in Hinduism, they thought there was neither existence nor non-existence, that the one breathed without breath by its impulse, other than that was nothing else. The passage implies that creation emerged from the divine consciousness and intention from the one divine thought. So we are the representation of this creator's force. And we have the same abilities that this creator has. So we have the ability to bring things into existence. And a lot of study and proof is being shown that vibration, frequency, breath is a frequency. In mantras, when you are taught a mantra, you are taught certain sounds and tones. Those sounds and tones can create or destroy based off of what the frequency of those sounds or tones are. In music and gospel singing and chants, all that's vibration. All that can create and all that can break down. Now, in the Kabbalah, in Judaism, the concept of creation through divine thought is present in the idea of the 10 Sephirot. Now, we will talk about that later. It's the 10 attributes and emanations from God, which creates the world, beginning with divine thought. And that goes back to thought and how everything is mind. That's the reason I wanted to bring this up. Now, we talked about Jung, and we're going to go ahead and finish up this talk on demons. if you look in one of my favorite representations in the art, and the art is really dark, it's by William Blake. And William Blake, some of his poetry is beautiful, but if you look at some of his artwork, it's very dark, but it's showing the opposite of good, of the light. If you've never seen his artwork, I would recommend taking a look at it and look it up. Read some of his poetry as well. It's just such a visual representation of what evil can be. So when we think about hell, we think about death and fires and torment and torture and death and dying, skeleton. That's all part of that dark experience that we're healing from now. It's a mental construct to give us imagery, and that imagery really has a way of imprinting into our subconscious. That's why art is so important, because even music as an art form, or a beautiful piece of art, painting, you can look at it, and just looking at it can instill in you different aspects of ideas, different ways of believing things. Just like in the Chinese language, a lot of their symbols isn't like our alphabet where one letter means one thing. You can look at a symbol and it means a whole lot of things. The same in Egyptian writing and Sumerian writing, that the writing transfers a whole thought and idea, not just a sound. That's how far away we've come from connection to symbols. But before that, we didn't need symbols. We didn't need to write. When writing was brought into existence by the god Thoth, I think it was used as a way to, because we were falling into a lower density, we still had to communicate because we were losing our abilities to be telepathic. So writing was a good way to communicate ideas. And that's why the hieroglyphs in Egypt and in different parts of them, not just Egypt, were so important, because it projected ideas and beliefs based off of that community, based off of that culture. But we come from a telepathic creation. God's telepathic. We were once telepathic. We didn't need to write things down. We were able to store our ideas as energy. We were able to store our energy into crystals. The crystal skulls, if you have never heard of them, I think you really should do some research about them, because I think in these skulls, very important information about different civilizations, not just on our planet, but off planet, were stored into these skulls. They're unearthing and uncovering advanced technology that has stored our whole history, that has recorded everything that happened on Earth, because it's a different type of communicating information. It's a holographic type of displaying the information. It's not something we write on paper that's destroyed, like they've been destroying the books. I think the Akashic Records are a type of holographic library that we can tap into in our consciousness. And that's why I think the advanced technology used by cultures who were here, who probably are still here, most of them, we just don't know, use these types of things like crystals and holographic technology to store information. But I think we're getting ready to find out a lot of things that is going to really test our mind. It's going to test our ability to expand our awareness and consciousness and grow. You're either going to do two things. You're either going to try to understand it, learn about it, study about it, grow from it, or it's going to cut you off and you're going to stay locked in that place, locked in a vibration of lower frequency where you cannot function in the new reality that's coming. So part of this, what I'm trying to do is not that I don't know everything. I'm studying things myself. I think there's a lot of things we have forgotten, but we knew that we need to relearn or we need to reawaken. I talked about awake. Let's try something else. We need to rediscover those memories. We need to connect back to those memories that have been disconnected from us. And that's part of my journey. I think all of us have blocks. We have put those blocks in place to protect us. But now's the time where we can start stepping outside of that, start expanding and learning. So thank you for watching me today. If there's any comments, that will contribute to expanding awareness. No religious comments, please. There's a lot of people who like to jump on my stuff and say, that's the devil, that's evil, you're this and that. We need to move beyond that, because that shows that you're in this one box and you're not willing to take a look at something, turn it over, examine it, and face it. That shows that your consciousness isn't ready. So I say this with love. Friday, my sister will be back with me. Thank God. We're going to do a live on dreams. It'll be mostly her. She's the one who has all the experiences, and I'll just be chiming in with my questions and, whatever I have to contribute to that one. But thank you. Please follow us on YouTube. It helps build up our community. And I'll see you Friday. Everybody have a great day.